Hello, welcome to another video of speed modeling with Alias. This is part 2 of the spaceship, and I broke it up in 2 parts because this second part it's a little mini version of what I did to make the first initial form. So as you see here, I'm just doing the same thing I did last time. I'm just developing a curve network to help me figure out how that turbine is gonna look, and what type of proportions I'll have. And and actually, before this, I had like this other video where I sort of tried to do like another method, like trying to sort of just build this or build these turbines off of those wheel wells that I didn't really like, just straight up surfacing, and it really was like it was kind of like confusing me. So it just always kind of reminds me that every time I sort of veer off my method, I always end up going back to how I'm comfortable modeling. And obviously we all have our different ways of approaching this. So I always try to tell people, because I've seen people model beautiful things in completely different methods, and to me, if you find more comfort doing some other way, then to me, there's as long as the result is really controlled and not really like it doesn't matter how much twist it has or anything like that. It matters more that you decided where to twist it and you decided what type of volumes you wanted. And if you have a better technique than mine, then make a video, link it to me, or but my point is that I don't actually think that this is the best method, because the only thing is it's my method. That this is what I feel comfortable doing it, and it's been really helpful in my career. So just remember that I don't really like. Sometimes I hear people, especially even in my career, when guys were sort of teaching me their ways. It's a lot of times people get a little too egotistical in that sense. They're always like, oh, you have to do it like that, and you have to do it like this, and I know I might have even sounded like that in my videos, but I feel I just want to make it clear that it's not so much my own method. It's more about I'm trying to tell you guys about control, and that's why I always tell you there's millions of different tools and techniques, because just don't be lazy about how you're modeling. Just make sure that whatever technique you're using, that you have ultimate control over it. And my technique is a certain, I don't know, I think you would call it like maybe box modeling or I don't know. Back in the day, they even used to call it like the European method, right? Because it used to be very before Americans didn't. I don't know. It was I wasn't that was before my era. But I will say that this technique isn't mine or anything new. It's just something that I learned through different coworkers, and it's something I really enjoyed, and it's helped me with the companies I worked for really liked my results, and also my clients like my results. So, but in the end, it's all about control. So here I'm gonna slow it down so we could see. I'm just while I was modeling it, here's me just kind of like rotating it around and seeing if I like the design. And again, just remember from the previous video that these are all just suggestions to help me figure out how those surfaces are gonna be surfaced. Okay, so now I actually start surfacing it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is add a curve on surface using the insert tool, and then I duplicate it using the duplicate curve tool, and then I skin those two together, and that's how I sort of extract a surface from my wing. And from there I go for the top view, and then I extend everything back so that to get the profile I sort of wanted. And again, this is me just trying to find a solid base before doing all the extra stuff I want to do. So I actually extend that plane all the way back, even though I know that there's going to be an elevation change later, and you'll see it in the design. At this point, I sort of had that idea anyways, but I still needed just a very solid base to sort of start with. Once I have that solid plane, I project the curves and I trim them, and now this gives me a nice top surface to work with. Now I wanna make the front of that turbine, so I use my rail tool to get a nice straight surface right there. And as you see here, I start to add all the move the main surface, and then I start adding the curve on surfaces using my insert tool. I always use the insert a curve on surface command because it inserts a curve on surface based on the actual surface's properties. So it gives you a really nice, clean, balanced cut. But obviously, when the angles are too different, you could use a curve or whatever other thing to make that cut. Here, as you see, I'm projecting I extend the curve on surface to get that corner, and then I duplicate that edge, and then I duplicate that curve and place it back on that edge, and then skin it. And even though I know that seemed like a little, there's probably easier ways to do it. It's just, I was kind of just going almost like a robot mode. I'm just trying to surface this as quickly as possible using, proper theory. And also, here, the speed I'm doing this to, it's actually fairly confusing, honestly. Like, just making those structures in space and trying to figure out what angle is gonna hit it, and doing a bunch of like what I'm doing right now, like untrimming, retrimming. It's I always, whenever I'm up against these sort of projects or this sort of workflow, I just go in my head, even though this is kind of quickly, in while I'm actually doing it, I just kind of try to go as simple as possible. Here I'm just railing it. So I'm just like, okay, let's just rail this, and I know that I have to do that because if you start thinking of it in the bigger terms, you almost get overwhelmed because it's kind of difficult to figure out that whole structure in your head. So here now I have a base, and I'm trying to, like, if you see me just like browsing around, and I'm like thinking, okay, like what should I do? What should I do? I'm trying to develop the underside of that connecting arm, and I'm always trying to find a way to use the surfaces to complete the other surfaces. So I insert a curve on surface in that slab, and then I rail it using the profile of the other slab. Now I extend it back to sort of match the profile that I wanted. So see, that's how I used the family that's around it to develop the underside of this like connecting arm, and that gives everything a solid foundation to work on. And if you notice in this, because it's so, especially when I'm working on things that are a bit more technical, like this turbine, I'm keeping everything really straight and adding no volume yet, because I'm trying to figure out first, even though I know that later it's going to cause me more work when I'm adding volumes everywhere and like realigning everything, but it's a bit confusing. So I'm just trying to sort of get the simplest squared up like form I can get. And here I kind of accomplished that. And now that you have this like surfaced up and built, it looks simpler. It's like, oh yeah, that's how, like, that makes sense. But it looks like that now, and as you saw how we were building it, it's confusing just to get this part down. So don't be too discouraged when you're just confused, because I've been doing this all my life, and I'm still like, it's not that I'm confused, it's always a difficult puzzle to solve. That's other things too about when I see these videos. They're teaching you the final result, not how they actually got there. And so now that I'm actually happy with this form, I'm gonna actually start adding volume to it. So I don't know if you remember when I in the first part, when I was doing in the first video, part one, when I was doing the curve network, and I talked about how I use the same theory throughout my whole process. Before I was using it for curves, right? Like finding the curve in space and then adding the volume. This is the same exact sort of thought process, but adding one more dimension to it with the surfaces. So first I found this very boxed up primitive form, and now I'm gonna start adding the volumes everywhere. And this is gonna cause a lot of just work in general, because every time, since I know it's closed up, every time I add volume to one side, the I know that I'm opening up another, and I have to figure out how to add volume to that. I mean, I have to add volume to all of them. And it might seem a bit, how can I say this, repetitive and stuff, but honestly, to me, it's just how you get ultimate control over everything. Before I was a NURB modeler, I was also a polygon modeler. I personally actually love polygon modeling, but polygon modeling doesn't give you this sort of control. And even with all of the new solutions coming out, like T-spline based solutions, like Speedform and stuff like that, what happens is they make it easier for people to make sort of round organic shapes, but they lack any real like control. So to me, they're not really. Every time I've because I'm always using these softwares, I mean, or testing them out. Every time I'm seeing them, they never have the same control that NURB modeling has in general. That's always NURB modeling is the way you can find ultimate fidelity in your models. So it's not only so much Alias. There's other solutions. But when you compare it to polygon modeling or anything like that, yeah, this does seem like a slower method, but nothing is going to give you as much control. If there was anything that could give you more control, one, I would love to see it, and secondly, I would move over to it, because I'm not really, I'm not like evangelical for NURB modeling. I'm an evangelical for great surface and modeling control. So if there's a new method, then I'll definitely always look it up. But so far, that's the reason why automotive design studios use it, and why high-end product firms use it too. So focusing back on the model, it's all kind of been the same. The only thing that has kind of been a little different is I railed that edge of the turbine across. And actually, if you see it's because I was kind of planning on having that turbine after it turns to go back, sort of like how I'm doing it there. But then later I sort of got bored of it. I didn't like how it looked. It kind of looked weak, like seeing how it doesn't really look good. So I actually go back to using one main slab for those surfaces. Excuse me. So here I'm using the same method I used, if you guys had seen my Electro video, is where I use the railing tool to sort of develop the edge of a surface. And later in the video, you're going to see that I do use one surface instead. But there's the pros and cons to all that, right? If you use one surface, you can't really change those angles. And even though in the front I do that, in the back you'll see how I use more this method. And here I'm just trimming it, and then I'm using my freeform blend, and then the side 2 I make it positional, because when I added different volumes to the connector and to the turbine, because I knew I wanted this little like light catcher. Once I had the volumes boxed in for the turbine, I went for the rear wing. And so here I insert a curve on surface, and then I align that curve I made to it, and then I just do a simple rail. And then I go into the top view and I project the curves I initially wanted, and then I use the trim convert tool to get me that surface. So that I've been doing that through like the whole video. If you like slow it down and you see how I did the rest of the wings, that's basically that's how, to me, that's the easiest way to do it. Then I control copy paste the lower surface, and then here for the top little tip, I do the same things I've been doing, just to get that curve and rail it across, extend back to the character I wanted, and see, now here you can see the amount of twisting I prevented by doing that. And then this gives me a nice little like base to start the rest of my wing. I skin those two together. So from here, I'm gonna use the rail tool to make the second side of that tip. So I just extend it to get the angle I want, and I extend out the bottom surface to match it. And then from the top view, I sort of box up the back of it. And this is the same, like I'm using the same like philosophy I've been doing through the whole video, well, through everything, honestly. See, railing it, and then once I actually rail it and see how it's relating with everything else, I'm like, well, okay, I think towards the end it looks a little too blocky. So see, this is like nice and boxed up, and then I'm like, okay, this is too blocky, and I decide to make this taper more, right? So now I use that surface to give me that nice straight taper I want. Then I align it up, and then surface the rest of it. And then so this gives me this rear wings, you know, done really quickly. You know, I think, what was that, like maybe 3-4 minutes for this like sort of wing tips. I duplicate that trimmed up edge, and then I simplify the curve a bit, and I control copy and paste and move that to the angle I think I want, and then I just skin them. Then I just quickly color it, and here I'm gonna use it looks kind of funny. I'm gonna use, you know, this my previous curves as a guide, like I've been doing. And then obviously, you know, now that I saw it with an actual surface and the rest of the sort of proportions of the vehicle, I figured bigger wings looked a lot more stable. But honestly, I'm pretty sure this is like terrible wing design, you know, obviously. But yeah, so we're gonna control copy and make the other side of the surface, align it to the edge, and then just skin everything together. And there you go. Now we have that nice little wing. I didn't like that angle from the side, so I just extend it back. You know, extend the rest of the surfaces back, and there you go. See, it's so, to me, once you sort of start seeing volumes like this, it's really you know, it's just the building blocks, you know, and you could go anywhere with it and make sure that, and you could also do it knowing that you'll have a nice solid foundation. Here I just control copy, and because I wanted to angle in, so I duplicate those edges, I copy them, I group them, I scale them, and then I move them a little back, and then now I'm gonna skin them. So now I'm getting closer to finishing off the main volumes of or the primary surfaces of this form, and I'm gonna start doing all the fillets and stuff. From the side, I control copy, paste, and then I add a little ledge there for the turbine. I wish I would have, I don't know, I wish I had the time to really keep going with this spaceship, but you know, I don't think it's really worth it. But it was a really fun project. Here I'm just doing the whole of the turbine. And also, once you really start adding the details in these spaceships, that's when the love starts coming out. Now I'm trying to figure out what to do first, and I'm gonna go for the easier targets, the rear wings, to start sort of surfacing up the secondary surfaces, the transitional surfaces. So because I know the front turbine is gonna take me the longest, so I'd rather get the rear wings out of the way. And so I just use the fillet tool on this corner with like 50 millimeters of a radius, and then I do the other side, and then I skin them together, I think. Oh no, first I do yeah, there you go. I skin them together, and then I use my project align, which is inside the line tool. There's a project command to align that skin and give it curvature. There's obviously, like how you saw in the other video, you could definitely use whatever method comes to your head. And then that gives me a nice little bend in the wing. And now I gotta make the top of the wing a little rounder. So I insert a curve on surface, insert curve on surface, trim, and then freeform blend. See? Same thing. Honestly, like it's so repetitive at this point, you know. Like well, I guess you could say if it ain't broke, don't fix it, huh? But uh, which also it gives my, I think it gives my designs just a certain look to it, you know. They're always very structured. But anyways, here I'm just I'm trying to figure out where to go with it. Oh, I started making the roundness of that interior still very free flowing, you know, not taking it too serious. Honestly, this is a casual weekend thing. So before I move on to the little fillets of those edges, I decide to go back to the turbine to try to surface it up, the secondary surfaces, and I redo this front edge because I realized that since I don't want that bend back anymore, it's easier if I just use one surface for the whole front edge of that. And as you see here, I'm gonna the previous stuff, I'm gonna put it in a layer instead of deleting it. And then I realized I'm like, oh wait, I still need it, so I open up again, and then I project it to the new surface. I mentioned that because, you know, I always have a layer where I put all my deleted surfaces, because sometimes especially when you're really in the zone, you'll sort of accidentally delete stuff, and I always go back to that to sort of see to find those surfaces I deleted. Here I just duplicated it back, and then I duplicated the surface, moved it back, and then I duplicated the edges of that hole, and then I simplified the curves, and now I'm grouping them, and now I'm skinning them to the front of this surface. Now I'm adding a square, and then that gives me this front hole. And now I know I have to realign everything to this new surface. So I have to untrim and align, and you know, it's part of the do process almost, you know. Okay, so here it gets really tricky. So I'm gonna try to explain what's going on. I know that I want to do the underside fillet of this connecting arm. So I need to cut up those surfaces to my left to help out my fillet tool. So I control copy and paste. I duplicate that surface that the in the edge, so that I can find out what that intersection is, and then I use the intersect tool to find those to make those curve on surfaces, and then I extend, and then I trim these just for the next point of this process, which is the fillet that I was trying to make. And then you'll see here that I realized that I didn't have I forgot to align it, so I take out that fillet, I realign it, and then I add that fillet again. See, this is all I'm slowly adding all the secondary fillets, and I'm trying to make it as easy as it can be for Alias to do all of those, and also easier for my head too, because I get confused on it's really easy to get confused on what is going on. So it's sort of like you have to slowly go at it, you know. And once I do that, I realize I need the transitional surfaces on the edge first, and there I'm just using a regular fillet tool for that corner in particular. And if you see see now that I added those big fillets, it really starts to make that form shine, you know. And I could have used other ways to make all those edges connect to each other and stuff like that, but at this point there's no I thought the solutions that the fillet tool did automatically was good enough. Here I'm just coloring everything up to make it easier to understand. I'm always doing this sort of like cleaning everything up as I go to help me. And then here I add the secondary fillet into that turbine. And see, like, you know, once you add those fillets, now that really starts to make everything a lot cleaner and nice looking, you know. For some reason, the fillet tool isn't trimming properly, so I'm just deleting the last one and then extending it out and then trimming it again. Honestly, I would, if this was more of a project inside a studio, I would go back and, you know, focus a little more on this on this section. But right now, I'm sort of trying to accomplish everything in less than 4 or 5 hours. So I'm a bit looser with it. Here, I'm just doing edge to edge and kind of doing it one by one as opposed to going through all of it. And if you do that, just remember to double check the edges of those fillets so that they're positional. I don't in this particular example, but it's fine. Oh Lord, am I bored? No, I'm joking. I'm only kind of bored. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to do that. I feel like by now I've lost everybody. There's no way someone's still watching this YouTube video. No way. I doubt it. So now I'm going to expose my deep, dark secrets. Sometimes I move around the fillets to make my job easier. So at that edge, if I hit 50, the fillet was reaching the corner of the other fillet, and it was making it do that edge line. So instead of doing that, what I did is I just made that edge a little smaller so it doesn't hit that secondary fillet. And then this made this job in particular a lot easier. See, if I just kind of like reach the corners as opposed to them reaching itself. I do that a lot, honestly. Just you know, if a lot of times the easier surfacing solution is also the better looking, you know. So now I'm just trying to figure out how I'm gonna do all these different areas. Here I'm doing the things I've been doing for the past, you know, through this whole project is insert curve on surface, freeform blend, and then I'm skinning the sides. I actually did the skin on, like, I wasn't supposed to do it because I already had that regular surface, so there was no point. But I guess it was just habit. See? Easy. This doesn't give you an accurate like chordal distance or anything like that, but it's like it really depends on what look you're going for, you know? It doesn't always have to be you know, exact distance between one side or the other, you know? Especially when we're talking about little like holes like this, you know. And then so see, now when I untrim it, since I did everything very slowly, like, you know, now we have this nice little profile that I can use to to trim, to project and trim all these this face. And then I accidentally get the curve on the back, but then I just delete it. And there, now I have the face. Honestly, back here, I could have done a lot more with it, you know. Like in terms of the transitions and making everything all that smoother, but I didn't really want to spend more time on this particular project, especially now that we're getting so close to the end. After this, all it is are just the really small fillets here and there, closing it up. Like you'll see here, I'll just extend everything out. And I wonder if I even attempted it, or did I just kind of leave it like that? Because right now I'm sort of analyzing the model that I finished it with, and then I realized that maybe that edge doesn't have anything. Now I'm doing the back of this turbine, and then as you can see, remember in the front I did that like insert, and then here in the back I'm just doing a fillet, you know. And that just kind of goes to show you that, you know, it doesn't really, to me, you know, whatever kind of like, whatever I think of first, I just do it. And then I isolate all the fillets, and then I skin them together. And then now I'm gonna oh, since I kind of, once I saw them like that, I thought they were a little too small, the inside fillets, so I make them bigger because they had history. And then now I'm gonna probably project align all those to its corresponding edge. And as you can see here, I'm only using tangent align, and that's because since everything's already so structured, it kind of is already curvature. Like if you see the other ones, I did do curvature, but if I double check all those, since they're all based off each other, most of the times it'll already be curvature. Now I'm trying to do the window of this, so all I do is just move it in. If I wanted to be more precise over it, I would have done like I would use the offset tool, but I didn't. And now I'm using the tubular offset tool to give me a bevel in those edges, and then this gives me a nice inward bevel to those edges. And then if you see here, all I do is just skin them. Usually I would, with all those spans, I would try to find something a little more cleaner. But as you go down the details, honestly, you get looser and looser with it, especially, I know I've already said this a couple times and I do apologize, but especially when, you have to think of speed versus what it is you're actually doing, Here, I just start doing the transitional surface already, and then I just project it to that window, and then I project it to the main surface, and then that's how I get that little a window bezel, I guess. In automotive term, that is called the DLO. That's like that window opening on the side. And now I am gonna do the main fillets in the middle, and I want to use my fillet tool, and I can't because I only have 1/2. So what I do is I duplicate those surfaces so that I can use my fillet tool. And remember to save. In these videos, every time I'm recording it, I gotta save more often. But I try to save as often as possible. And if you could see here, this is very much simple surfacing, but it talks about a lot of the rules that you always tend to follow. What I'm doing right now, this is more secondary or trichary surfaces. So I wait until everything else is done, and then I do those the ones that are all in the middle, and then all you have to do is curvature and with collinear option, and then there you get a nice little corner, nice and clean. Same thing here. I push it back, align, and then because the thing is, it's kind of the same size, as the other one. So instead of filleting it, I rather move them back and surface them. It gives you a nice little clean front end. And then once I paint that, and see now from here I skin these, project a line to one of the edges, the other edge too, and then I think that's about it for the middle surfaces. So I think from here I could delete. I know that I can delete the edges now that I don't need those duplicates I did, and then I'm gonna project and trim that middle. You could also detach it, in the middle, but at this point I felt like I could just project and trim. It would be a little quicker, and I might need that later. I don't know. And see, now it really starts looking nice, and all that is just based off those really simple curve networks that we did in the beginning. Nothing too crazy. So I always try to end these videos, as I do these fillets. I'd rather talk about what the lessons were that I was trying to sort of teach you guys, because like how we said in part 1, it wasn't so much the tool I used, it was more about the foundation of the base. If you see that hood I did, the canopy, all of those different ways that I did those, the result was exactly the same, because the fundamentals of the volumes were the same. And you know, if you see the hard edge model of this spaceship versus where it is now with all the smooth secondary surfaces, you know, all of those are secondary, as in they're based off the primaries. And so the actual design of this spaceship came out in that first blocky cube. The rest was just me choosing the size of the transitions and you know the look of the surfacing. But that's the whole point of this video, you know. Make sure that your structure is as solid as possible, because that is where your design comes from. You know, a lot of times I see people, it's sort of like they first design the headlight, and then through that they try to sort of extrapolate the hood. And you know, I remember one guy told me he was an expert in Alias. You know, he was sending me some emails, and his model was like the front end of a headlight, you know, a corner. And one, it wasn't really that good, but secondly, it really made me see what level he was in, because you know, he didn't, how are you going to do a headlight if you don't have the surrounding volumes around it, you know? How am I going to do DLO when I don't have a nice surface to work with, you know? If you follow a good structure, then everything else sort of just falls in place, you know. Another very, very important thing to remember is that, more honestly, the most valuable aspect of my skill set is the ability to push things out at whatever timeline they give me, because that was one of the most difficult things to sort of start developing. Because you know, if you give anybody enough time, they'll make perfect things happen, you know. But in this world, that is like, that hardly ever happens. So you need to be able to sort of, even if you're not comfortable with the quality of the surfaces, sometimes that's not really, it's not the time limit is really doesn't allow you to be too critical of that, you know. So remember that this will definitely, if you end up working in the automotive industry, this is going to happen a lot in your career, where you want to make everything perfect, and you want to you know, spend your time. But you know, good surfacing, good modeling, it takes a lot of time, and so a lot of times you don't have that kind of time. So you're more valuable as a person that could sort of turn down the knob in quality and turn up the speed, so just to get the project done, because that's always part of the what you're wrestling with when you're developing these. You know, in this model, I sort of challenged myself that I wasn't gonna take more than an afternoon to complete it. So there was definitely a lot of places where I was like, all right, oh, I have to kind of stop and keep going, because I don't have that much time, you know. And that's always an extremely valuable aspect of your skill set. It took me a really long time to do that, because I was so obsessed with making everything look perfect. But honestly, the whoever gets the project done and done like the best way, but more importantly done, is the person that's going to stay around, because when the deadline hits, you know, they're going to call you. So just to end this video, I'll just do a quick, you know, look around the final form. And so a lot of the video you saw was sped up 3 times or 2 times, and sometimes even 4 times. But the overall timing was somewhere around, you know, 5 hours. And so I got this sort of, you know, starting point. If I change the shading. See, from here, you know, there's so many ways you could take it. I would definitely, you know, start rebuilding and adding more different forms and volumes, you know, to these wings and cutouts. But I felt like this was sort of good enough for what I was trying to explain. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. remember to check back on my YouTube channel, because I will start a simpler, like, fundamentals things, just to sort of help out people. And I might even do some more advanced videos, except that some, a lot of time, if you don't see me post videos, it's because I'm extremely busy. But every time I have free time, I try to post these up. So anyways, I hope you guys have a nice week. I hope you guys learned a thing or two with this video. And yeah, you contact me at my email or my website. And yeah, I hope you guys have a nice day. Bye bye.